am here and already laughing with my newfound friend, Brian McAuley, the author of Breathe In, Bleed Out. Thank you so much for coming on Macabre Daily, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean. I can't wait to dig in with you.
Well, I told you before, this is exciting for me. First off, because I feel like there are many authors out there and great authors that are writing terrific horror. There's like a subset that are doing slasher horror. And again, I always want to, quantify this by saying there's a lot of great slasher stuff out there. You and Stephen Graham Jones, though, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, are like leading the charge and the pack as far as slasher horror. It's fun, frantic. You're both different. You both bring different aspects to it, but boy, oh boy, is it good. And it's
Oh,
so
thank you.
much fun to read.
Thank you. I mean, any and all comparisons to Stephen feel unwarranted. I'm just in awe of him, but grateful that he's really paved the way for this subgenre in literature to whet people's appetites and make them realize like it works really well on the page, not just in
Sure
film.
does. No, it really does. Okay, this is where I have to embarrass Brian and go through your many accolades. So I promised him I'd make it quick and painless. You got a BA from NYU in creative writing and horror theory. I went to NYU for a time as well, sir.
No way.
That's right.
Yeah.
This would have been decades before you and your young face jerk. Yeah, I was there in 92, 93, and 94, and I had the time of my life. I was in eighth floor of university, Weinstein on
Oh,
university.
I lived in Weinstein. Oh my God. You know who Emily C. Hughes, the author of Horror for Weenies, lived on my floor freshman year of Weinstein. And we didn't realize it until StokerCon. She came up to me after I was on a panel and she was like, it just fell into place. And we both like lost our minds.
You've got to be kidding me. This is upsetting because not only do I know Emily and I've talked to her, and I actually covered her book launch in Brooklyn for Horror for Weenies.
Oh my
I
God.
knew that she was part of the crew that survived Weinstein Hall. Actually,
Oh,
I had
all
so much
those
fun there.
those cinder block walls. It was a wonderful place.
All right. Now, wait, let me ask you, were you the street side dorms or were you the back?
Street side. Where were you?
I was in the back at first and
Oh
I
yeah.
begged and begged them. Can I please be on the street side? I'd like to see the sunlight at some point.
They're like, no, best we can offer you is like a Hitchcockian rear window situation where when you open your blinds or staring into someone's bathroom.
And then somebody would invariably always scream up the atrium,
Yep.
at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was probably you, or it was
Yep.
probably
Exactly.
me. All right. Look, this is not what the podcast is about, but you and I will be at StokerCon in Pittsburgh, and I know you'll
Yes.
be there next year as well. I am going to lovingly grab you for a beer, and we're going to unpack some Weinstein stories, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, great. I've derailed myself already
I know.
from the intro. Okay, then you went to Columbia. What a friggin' slacker this guy is. You got your MFA in film at Columbia. Incredible. You've written 5 films. You've sold TV pitches to sci-fi. You've penned, this is my favorite. You penned an episode of Fuller House for Netflix. I'm getting that on a t-shirt.
That's
Then we get to the novels. Okay. Curse of the Reaper was named one of the best books of 2022 by Esquire. Holy smokes. Candy Cane Kills has received praise from Booklist and Library Journal and Kirkus Reviews, which of course led to the inevitable sequel, which slashers do, of Candy Cane Kills Again, The Second Slaying. And then, of course, we're landing on Breathe In, Bleed Out. Well, look, it wasn't that quick, but it was pretty painless, right?
yeah. I don't feel too much pain.
And now, of course, you're teaching screenwriting in Arizona. I'm sorry, it's Arizona State. Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
my goodness. And I've already said that I'm worried that you're going to melt, but I'll send all the good, cool vibes your way.
Thank you. I need all the good vibes to survive this summer, but
I just can't. Bless you for the desert. I can't, Brian. But That's a me issue, not a you issue. I'm sure you're having a blast out there.
We get through the summer to survive. Everybody just runs from one air conditioned place to another,
In
just
the other.
scurrying. I always talk about it as like reverse hibernation. Like in the summer, the streets are empty because everybody's just hiding from the heat. But it's I found a good community out here. There's a good horror contingent as well, which is always nice
Nice.
to find your people in that way.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go in the way, way back machine. I have to know, I'm so curious. Slashers is your vibe. Seems to be your vibe for the past few books. You're incredibly good at it. I do want to get to where you see yourself going to in the future, or if it will
Mhm.
stay in this lane. But first and foremost, I always ask my authors in first time meeting, when did it start? And when did you kind of know? And were you always a horror person?
Great question. I mean, it started really as early as I can remember. I feel like my answer is a familiar one amongst horror kids of the 90s, which was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark,
Yeah.
Goosebumps books, Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon. Like we like had this jackpot of this golden age of horror for kids that just like shaped me in so many ways and got me so excited about scary stories. And then from there, kind of aging up to like watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, those these shows that then kind of melded the like teen drama with horror, which then paved the way for me to find Scream at the right age. So it just just again from that very early age. Also having an older brother, my older brother went to NYU before I did, and
Okay.
I would take the train from New Jersey where I grew up and stay with him at his dorm, and we would go to Kim's Video on Astor Place,
Oh, I
which,
know it well.
oh my God, it was just a magical VHS at the time rental store. Um, and he's the one who like showed me the Evil Dead for the first time and just kind of opened the door of like my brain just kind of exploded of just like, oh my God, this is a step up from Nickelodeon for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And I want all of it.
You get that first taste and you're like, I'm going to chase this thrill forever. But what you
Yeah.
did was you went one step further. I'm sure you chased the thrill in your own right, and we'll talk about movies. But you've created your own thrills, which I'm always so impressed by and a little jealous of.
Oh,
You're creating your own horror.
it's the dream. I think I've been keeping kind of like little notebooks since I was very young. And I have like one of the first ones when I must have been like 13 or 14, writing about how like that my dream was to like create the kind of scary stories that I loved. And I studied creative writing and screenwriting and just knew that one way or another, that's what I wanted to do, which I'm grateful that I knew from an early age that that's what I wanted to do. It's a bonkers pursuit to lean into, but gratefully somehow I've managed to find my way and to keep doing that.
It's incredible. And it also seems like you found your people as well because you have a great relationship because I stalk you all through Instagram. I'm a creep. You 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 have you've got this great community of authors. You're really creating like this new horror. I should give it a moniker that actually makes sense and trademark it immediately. But you really are part of this rising movement that's been going on for the past couple of years of incredibly good writing, original concepts that do draw on previous horror tropes and books that have come before, but in new directions. It's exciting. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing that's been the most wonderful surprise, especially moving from the film and TV world into the publishing world and finding my people, at places like StokerCon and other events and through social media to like start those connections that then blossom in person at events. But I've been very fortunate to have friends like Clay McLeod Chapman and Rachel Harrison and Nat Cassidy and like these people who are just really passionate and really supportive, and just we all just love this genre so much, and I think that's a beautiful thing too, is like we're all readers first and foremost and writers second. So there's this joy of getting to celebrate and read each other's work that comes from a genuine place. And that idea of like the rising tide lifts all boats. Like when horror does well, we all win.
You all benefit from the incredible indie publishing houses
Yeah.
that are prevalent now. Because I always equate that what's happening now with horror, and I hope there's no end in sight. It doesn't seem like there is, to what was happening in the 80s. However, in the 80s, it was like these big churn and burn houses, and there wasn't a lot of small indie press,
Yeah.
so there certainly wasn't a lot of diversity and different voices and different perspectives. So even though there was fantastic horror back then, you kind of fell into the rut of, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
It's completely different now, and you're part of that. You're one of the voices that are part of this exciting moment that is so diverse. And there's a variety of horror out there for whatever anybody's looking for. And I love the small presses. I hold nothing against the major publishing houses as well.
Mhm.
They're producing great work too, but like everybody's kind of getting a fair, I don't know, I shouldn't go crazy and say a fair shot, but everybody's getting a chance at bat, I should say. And that's exciting.
Yeah, the indie, I feel like, especially in horror, like indie presses are doing so much amazing work. Like I've had the privilege to work with shortwave books on the Candy Cane books, and
Yeah.
from the very start, that was just a wonderful collaborative experience with Alan Nastufka there, who does so much creative work behind the scenes, and really puts out books that people like want to collect, that they want like I need that killer VHS lineup on my shelves kind of thing.
Yes.
And so many other like Tenebris and Clash books and new ones like Mad Axe Media and Death by TBR, and it just feels like there's so many more outlets for these really sort of unique niche stories to exist and to find their audience. Again, there's plenty of ills to assign to social media, but I've seen so much positive come out of it in this way of like exposure for smaller presses and indie authors to kind of grow their audience organically.
I've seen authors, yourself included, authors supporting authors on social media. And it's to your point, that rising tide lifting all the boats. It's exciting. It's exciting as hell.
Yeah,
Let's get into some slashing, why don't we?
let's do it.
Okay. So with Breathe In, Bleed Out, a couple of things I want to point out. First off, Curse of the Reaper and Candy Cane Kills, complete slasher, completely different. So you find a new voice and you find a new outlet for your incredibly masterful kills. And we'll get to how much fun. I'm so curious to ask how much fun you had, but we'll get there. First, I have to know, how did you land on I mean, we're in Joshua Tree and we're at like this spiritual, health retreat. And how did you land on that for a setting? Because it's perfect, especially at this moment in time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an idea that's been percolating for a while. That I lived in LA for a decade, and so I had many run-ins with the kind of spiritual wellness culture in every incarnation, and I had visited Joshua Tree multiple times and just realized that like it checked all the boxes for me to kind of reverse engineer from that location. Like, okay, I can do a slasher here that plays with all the props and all the locations built into a wellness retreat. And also, equally important for me is some element of social commentary and satire, like Reaper sets its sights on Hollywood, and the Candy Cane books, it deals with religious extremism. And for this one, I knew it was like, all right, I want to take a look at wellness culture through the lens of horror. And it was, yeah, it just fit very clearly in terms of then figuring out, all right, I have to find a character who needs healing and goes to a place for that and finds the exact opposite, to a
Yeah.
certain degree. Um, But yeah, it just felt like, those key elements and tropes of the slasher of like an isolated location, but instead of, cabins at a campground, it's yurts at a wellness retreat, and finding those ways to update the tropes in fun ways.
But and that's my favorite thing about this incredible novel. I mean, cat's out of the bag. You're gonna get an absolute love letter from me of a review. So,
Thank
I
you.
should have played it cool and been like,
Yeah.
it's okay, I suppose. If you're into
Thank
that,
you.
completely into it.
Thank you.
You nailed it. You're taking very tried and true tropes, say that three times fast, but you're making them your own. You take like the jock and the slut and the breen and the stoner, but you're putting a completely new veneer on it, a 2025 veneer on it. So you have like the finance bro, and the fitness guru. And it's intoxicating. I love it so much because you recognize them, but they're completely new. So
Yeah.
I know that was conscious, and I know it's part of your process, and you set out to do that. But the setting itself is so familiar, but yet so new because
Mhm.
all I'm seeing when I'm reading is this is sleepaway camp. This is
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, and it comes at you in waves. And it just makes for such a pleasurable reading experience. Again, this is the problem that I have with books that I love and authors that I can't wait to talk to, is it turns into Chris Farley going, "Remember that time you wrote that great book? That was great." I can't help it.
Oh, I appreciate it. And yeah, that's part of the fun of, for me, the joy of writing is thinking about the reader on the other side. And especially when you're writing for horror readers, and especially with the niche of the slasher subgenre, like there's a shared language that that you're trading in, and like thinking about like, okay, people are going to get a kick out of this little, not even Easter eggs all the time so much as just, as you described, those like the twist on the trope and the familiarity, but bringing it into a different light and updating it in ways that make it feel like that old Hollywood thing of like, we want the same thing but different. And I'm not, I have no qualms or shame about like, yeah, I want to hit the beats of the slasher because that's what people
Why
signed
not?
up for and that's what I want when I come to a slasher. So how do I do that but still kind of keep it fresh and have some twists that keeps people on their toes? And that's kind of the assignment, I feel like.
Well, besides me gushing, because no one's going to buy the book, which is like, okay, he lost his mind. Let's talk about why the book is so good. And it's for a slasher, I believe, whether it's a film or a novel, always starts with the core mystery. So with Hannah, you leave these breadcrumbs in the beginning with a very like a jarring opening that's that's mysterious because we really don't know what
Yeah.
actually happened, but it's enough to really get us intrigued. And it's also enough that we are sympathetic for Hannah and she is suffering. I mean,
Yeah.
she is suffering PTSD. I know that the horror elements, the slasher elements of the novel are paramount to you because I mean, that's why people buy the book. But how important was it to also get that that self-care and that PTSD aspect correct for the novel?
Yeah, it to me it's so important because like the one of the ways in which I feel like modern slashers, especially in literature, can kind of next level the sort of 80s films that we grew up on is to have characters that we really get to invest in, to have a little bit more depth, especially even with like secondary characters that on a film you don't really have the space or the interiority to dig into your characters in that
True.
way.
That's a
And
great
so
point.
for me, you like, and this is something I talk to my students about all the time, is that no matter what genre you're writing in, it needs to be rooted in character driven drama. Like that we need to be invested in this character and care about whatever it is they're pursuing. And in Hannah's case, it's like there's a very clear goal of like she wants to heal, she wants to move on from this past trauma. And there are many obstacles, herself being one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
And I wanted that point of connection. I wanted to kind of take my time to make sure that people at the start of the book could get on board with that. with that very kind of human flawed character before the real slasher horror elements kick in. So it to me is like I don't think I would want to write anything really if it wasn't rooted in a kind of character driven journey in that way.
Your characters, they're so well defined, and they come to life. They're real. They're real is what I'm
Thank you.
saying. Like you can relate to them. Nothing ever has a false note to it where you're like, all right, I don't know about that. No, I mean they're immediately relatable. So with that, you you have characters. It's one of my favorite things that you do in the novel. You have characters that are not they're not immediately likable. And then
Yes.
you do this thing where you kind of make them likable.
Oh, good.
Like they have this cathartic moment and self-reflection, and then you kill them. It's like that is what's going to sell this damn book right there. Fun that you're having where you're taking them through their mini arcs only to murder them in these unbelievably delightful ways. Talk to me about that process and how you come up with these unbelievable kills. And we won't spoil anything because I
Oh,
want
thank you.
people to buy this. But come
Thank you.
on, you gotta tell me how the sausage is made.
I mean, it really does. It starts with the kind of surface layer, almost stereotypes that you named, right? Of like, the jock and the bitchy character and the stoner um and like, okay, I can start with that, familiar trope stock character, but I know I need to like peel back those layers little by little and show these unexpected sides to these characters that make them maybe a little bit more likable or at least a little bit more understandable. I think like we don't have to like these characters so much as like, okay, I understand why they are the way that they are. And as you said, like my goal is always, and I think this comes from screenwriting too, is that like thinking of character arcs of like where do they start, where do they end. Unfortunately for them, they're in a slasher story, so most of the characters in the story end with death. But if you zoom out, that's all of our arcs. So it really is just a condensed arc.
You're
But
bumming me out a bit, but true.
yeah, yeah. Thought this was Macabre Daily. Come on.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I gotta toughen up.
But yeah, it really, for me, it is a discovery process. Once I'm a very big outliner, so I have everything plotted out. But usually it's not until I'm in the drafting process that the character layers and backstories start to come out and the characters start to kind of reveal themselves to me in ways where I start to learn more about them and I start to care about them. And it's kind of my goal is like, I want to get to know them and care about them before I brutally murder them.
I mean, look at the smile on your face. That's how
I,
much fun you have. Okay, I just was talking to Rachel Harrison, a shameless name dropper, um, Monday, and I asked her, "Are you more of a plotter or a pantser when you write?"
ooh, yeah, I am very much a plotter.
Okay.
And again, I think this comes from being a screenwriter. I like every screenwriting job I've ever had. The first step in that contract is delivering an outline before you can write a draft. So, and writing in TV rooms, it's the same thing. And so I'm kind of engineered in that way to plot everything out, the arcs, the major scenes and beats. But now I'm at the point where my outlines are so detailed. Like the most recent one I sent to my agent was like 11,000 words in outline form, and so it's almost like a half draft at that
It
point where I have
sounds like
so
it.
much
Yeah, that's a lot.
detail. Yeah, and then I move from that into, the chapters and fleshing out the moving the characters, hearing them speak of it all. But it's very much an iterative process for me because I start with like index cards and a cork board of like, okay, we're at a spiritual healing retreat. It's a slasher. So I have the set pieces that I kind of plot around because those are kind of my tent pole moments and kind of engineer everything around that.
You make some great points about the toxic nature of the whole wellness movement. And you said that you lived in LA for a time. So how important is it in your novels to have, to have something to say? So it's not just we're here for a fun time, which is fine. But
Yeah.
your novels also do always have I don't want to call it a message, but you're saying something, which is
Yeah.
essentially a message.
Yeah. It's got something that I think that came from, as you mentioned, like I studied the horror genre like extensively in my undergrad, because I wanted to understand like what draws me to it, why is it so popular, what is the history of the genre, and I do think that it's the best genre for social commentary. When you
Agree.
look at like Night of the Living Dead and movies that are using the genre as vehicles to pack in these messages in ways that don't feel preachy or don't feel too heavy
Knocking you
because
over the
they're,
head. Yeah.
yeah. And so for me that feels very innate to the genre and one of the reasons I love writing in it. And so it as I mentioned, like every book I've written has some kind of satirical edge or some kind of magnifying glass held up to some kind of subculture or some kind of thing that I have conflicted feelings about or very strong feelings about. And it's fun to use the books as a way to kind of unpack that and present it, and then to read reviews and see how people respond to it. Like I had a wonderful review from someone who is a trauma informed yoga therapist, and she loved this book, and because she works in that profession, but she recognizes the
Yeah.
toxicity and the
Got it
issues
right.
within it. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, these are the validation reviews that I hope to see, because it is, you don't want to get on your high horse and talk down to people, or again, like get on your soapbox and preach, but you do want to find a way to kind of bake it into each character's perspective, to give those different angles on it.
It was funny because when I finished the novel, I let it marinate, just like a film as well. You let it marinate and you start thinking about it. And over the week, I was like, everything started to come to the surface of like, yeah, this really is, it's damning the toxicity of that movement, but not necessarily the people, because we're all
Mhm.
human. So
Yeah.
everybody gets a moment to shine before you mercilessly kill them, you know? But I really do appreciate it though. It makes for a richer, deeper read. Um,
Thank you.
I don't, without getting political, I'll piggyback on what you said just by saying that, typically when there are times of great unrest, it it produces some of the most groundbreaking in every genre,
Hmm.
and in every medium, whether it's film, TV, literature. And I feel like we are certainly in that now. And I think we are going to look at this time and what it produced. And we're only in 2025. Like the decade's only halfway through.
Yeah.
By the time we get into the 2030s, I believe we'll look back in the 2020s and just be like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
because people
No.
have to get it out.
Yeah. It both in film and in literature on the horror front, like, I'm actually building a new course right now, on kind of like the history of the horror genre in cinema, and looking at like each decade and like what was happening in the world at that time, and what were
Fascinating,
the horror films that were reflecting those real life terrors and fears. And it's so very clear in retrospect, from each
right?
decade to the next. And as you said, I feel like when you're in the decade, maybe it's a little bit harder, but at a time like this, it's also really easy to be like, well, yeah, I think there's
Right?
a
Yeah.
lot going on that we're reckoning with, and it's coming out in our art as it should. But yeah, when you see the success of movies like Sinners and Weapons, and as we've been talking about, every book in the horror genre that we're getting from more diverse perspectives, and that's the goal, right? Is to keep growing, the diversity of voices and the stories that are giving us perspectives we haven't seen before.
It's funny. I'll make it all about myself for a moment. Why don't I?
Yeah.
I'm going to go on. Cradle to the Grave. Do you know Eric Hansen? Have you,
Oh, yes. I haven't met Eric, but yeah.
okay, I'm going to yell at Eric
Okay.
once we're done, and I'm going to be like, how could you dare not have Brian McAuley on your podcast? I'm going to make him feel really bad. Um, he's having me on for an 80s retrospective where he just finished that decade. And it's interesting, the 80s itself, the decade starts with like we have The Thing, and
Yeah.
we have by the time we get to like Poltergeist, You can see like the it's just the beginning of maybe the direction, skewing in another direction completely politically and socially. Because the beginning of that decade, we're still kind of riding high on the 70s of like paranoia and don't trust the man and like,
Oh yeah.
everybody, you do you, I'll do me. And by the time we get to and it was really the influx of the action movie that kind of, you know, cast the shadow over all the other subgenres, you get, except horror, you get it everywhere where it almost becomes very, nationalistic,
Yeah.
but not horror. Horror is still like, fuck you.
Yep.
Like the Blob in '88 is
Oh,
very much like, here comes the government. Now we're really in for it.
yep. 100%. I just rewatched that one because it is a masterpiece.
It's so good.
Oh, but yeah, really, that's, one of the things that I really admire about horror is it's always shining a spotlight into those dark corners that, society or the people in power do not want to talk about. And we're like, fuck you, we're gonna talk
We
about
do.
it in the biggest, most monstrous way because you keep trying to repress and oppress these voices. And when that happens, they rise up in the form of, zombies or whatever kind of monster or horror story kind of tropes you get to use to kind of talk about what's
Right.
really happening in the world.
You perfect. I mean, I mush mouthed it all over the place and
No.
succinctly summed it up. If you didn't live on the surface of hell, I would come to this class and watch it. But no, but you do, so I won't.
Exactly. You can't come out here. Wish it on no one.
This Irish skin will melt. Let's talk
Spooky.
about let's talk about two things.
Okay.
Let's talk about the I want everyone to hear about the launch plan for the novel. I will have the pre-order link right below everybody. Just take a look below and you'll see exactly where you can get Breathe In, Bleed Out. And but talk to me a little bit about how we're going to promote this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it comes out September 2nd. So it's the second and third. I'll have events in here in Arizona at Changing Hands and then Poison Pen. And then I'm hitting the road. I'm going to be in Houston, Los Angeles, San Diego, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. And then I just got invited to be a guest in October at the Southern Festival of Books in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, so I'm really excited to do this tour and to, hit some bookstores and reconnect with booksellers and readers who have been so supportive for my first three books. In many ways, this feels like my debut, my delayed debut after building up with kind of more indie books to have this with Poison Pen as a much kind of wider release. So I'm really grateful to the readers who have been here the whole way through, and to get to see everybody in person soon.
Well, we're grateful to you because you do great work. It's so creative and it's so terrifyingly fantastic.
Thank you.
Poison Pen, thank you so much for the arc. And Brian, thank you so much for giving me a chance to read this incredible, scary, fun, horrific novel. Before I let you go, though, I have to know what are your what were the influences, the slasher influences
Mm.
for the novel, either literature or film, and what is your favorite horror movie?
Oh, it's an unfair. All right. I mean, the influences, I mean, a big one for sure is Scream. And I think kind of like what you talked about earlier, when I write each book, even though they're all slashers, I try to do a different kind of version or angle. Like Curse the Reaper is more kind of a psychological horror novel about slasher movies. And Candy Cane is the kind of slasher where it's like, all right, you get the iconic sort of Jason Voorhees character who like there's no mystery about who's doing the killing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this for me the influence was like, okay, now I want to try writing a proper murder mystery the way that Scream
Mystery is
was.
so good, Brian. I should have
Thank
pointed that
you.
out earlier. It is at the central core of the novel. It's so good.
Thank you. I appreciate it because it was my first time writing that type of story, and it requires a very particular approach to the craft. And I found it really fun to lean into that. So Scream a big influence, and then Final Destination, those just like over the top. murder set pieces that are just as much, you're gasping and giggling in from one breath to the next. Like those are a huge influence for me on building those death set pieces.
And I should have known it's in the afterword. Yeah,
Yeah.
you take these intricate set pieces for the killings, and yeah, I mean it's a perfect combination. All right. All right. Well played, sir.
Thank you.
This was fantastic. I will please send me all of your dates and we'll put it on the Macabre Daily social media. I may traipse out to New Jersey. I'm going to check your dates. No New York
Oh,
dates?
yes. Not this time. They possibly in October, but I haven't settled on that one yet. So we'll
I'm going
see.
to come see New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. Jersey's gonna be a fun one.
I'm the guy in the back holding up the sign. He wrote that episode of Fuller House.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Listen, I'm a Jersey boy. I grew up in Jersey, so
Right?
my parents are gonna be there. It's gonna be a family affair at that Jersey event.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Look, can't thank you enough. Everyone, breathe in, bleed out, September 2nd. Look below for the link on where to order this incredible slasher horror novel. It's so much fun, and you're gonna dine out on every page like I did.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. It was so fun chatting with you.
Ah, it was a blast. Until we talk again, my friend.
Absolutely.
Take care.